Hi, I'm Paul Brodie. We're back in my shop. The man behind the camera is Mitch. Thank you. We've had a lot of comments on my drill press. It's variable speed, as you can see. So what we're going to do today is to take a look at it, give you some background information, some specs, talk about manufacturers, that kind of thing. Maybe first we'll wander over, look at the Aramaki race bike. I know some of you are interested in that as well, so I'll show you what's new. Last video, we had a wanted ad for the Cobb. I got contacted by Mark Capella in Spain. There was one on Marketplace, so I was dealing with the owner of the carburetor, and then the language barrier got in the way, and he didn't have PayPal. So Mark came to the rescue. Thank you, Mark. The Cobb got shipped yesterday. That's a big step. I polished up the case. It had a crack. Mitch is going to show you a photo of what got fixed there. That was all done by hand. That was one day's work to match everything up, sand out all the corrosion and things like that. So I think that's looking pretty nice. I have a back wheel now. It's off a 78 XL 350 Honda dirt bike. It's got a cush drive, a really nice cush drive, maybe a little bit heavy, but if I modify this a little bit, take off some metal, it's going to fit. I've ordered the new rim and spokes, and we're going to modify this and mount the sprocket. So that's coming up in an episode. And I've also ordered shocks. I found out where to get work shocks. There's a new owner of the company. I think she is the daughter of the original owner. So that's what's going on with the race bike. Let's take a look at the drill press now. I always like a foot switch. So we have a foot switch here. So that's pretty handy because if you're holding something in your left hand and operating, and if anything goes wrong and you have to switch it off, you can have your foot right over the switch. That's nice. Bought this switch years ago. Never had a problem. So I'm going to switch it on. So this is how the variable speed works. When I turn it like that, you see it's going faster, and then when I back it off, it's slowing down. So that's the slowest speed right there. I'm going to show you a photo that I took back in 1981, because that photo and the drill press, that was my inspiration to build this one. On the last video we shot, that was on the Vincent Black Shadow, I talked about a guy named Dave, and Dave, I said that he had a welder and he had a bandsaw. Well, actually Dave had much more than that. He lived on the west side of Vancouver, and he had a small house. He had an upstairs and a basement. He lived upstairs. The entire basement was a machine shop. You walk in there, all you see is machines and metal. So of course I kind of liked that situation, and he was helping me out for a few bucks. He had a drill press, and that's the drill press which you're looking at. And it's a black and white photo I took in '81. And I knew that when I saw that I wanted one of those drill presses. So we're going to come back to that photo later after we look at my drill press more, and I'll explain some of the features of his drill press. A couple days ago I was in the shop, and I had a feeling that I should go upstairs into my office and have a look for some old paperwork, and I found my old paperwork amazingly, and there's the photo you looked at, and then there's also some specs. So looking at this, I know that it's made by the Hilo company, so I'm going to show you what we got here. Here's the paperwork that I got in 1991, and it was sold by Rayside, which is a company in Vancouver. I don't know if they're around still, but this shows the specs of high ratio compound pulleys. And I've got another spec sheet which I'll show you because I know some of you like this kind of stuff. And this shows all the different models and things like that, and what the side view looks like. So there's the pulleys. You can buy the pulleys on their own, owned separately. And back in 1991, I paid $400 for this, and that is Canadian dollars in 1991. And then you get what's known as the control. And this is the mechanism that moves it back and forth. This was, I can't remember how much it was, but it was a lot of money. I decided I was going to make my own. On this sheet here, which came with my set of pulleys, it tells you how to lubricate it. But it was either one of these models, and looking at it now, I found a decal. Actually, Mitch found it, and we got the one. I've got the 165 HR model. So if you're wondering which model, that's it. So I went online because I wanted to see what was going on, and I typed in high ratio compound pulleys, and this popped right up on the screen. I thought, great, you can still buy these. So I contacted the company, I did some email, and the company says that we aren't making them anymore. It's like, you're not making them anymore. So I found out a little bit of the history. I did emails back and forth. They started making this system in the late 40s. That's the 1940s. So this product has been around for 70 years. And then something happened in 2017. There was some kind of a slowdown or something. I don't know the whole story at all. They said that they had problems in getting the molds. Now, I don't understand what the problem was. And the last ones they sold were last year. So maybe COVID had something to do with that. I don't know. So anyway, what I'm trying to tell you is that this system that's been available for 70 years is no longer being sold, which is a shame. So I said to them, well, who else sells a system like this? And they said, well, we don't know anybody else that sells a system like this. So that's kind of like a dead end in a way. So I went online and I looked, and I did find this other company. I'll show you what I found. In the US, there is a company, and the company name, that's on the next slide. It's called Speed Selector Incorporated. So on their website, they only have a single photo, and it looks like this is kind of like the high-low system, but I don't know because I can't really see. There's one belt going in, and there's another belt on the other side, and there's some sort of a control stand. I don't see anything which is sliding, so I'm not sure if this is good. So on the high-low model, it's got a ratio of 7:1, and on these guys, which is Speed Selector Incorporated, I'll show you the other paperwork I have from them. Okay, here's the company, and they have two models. One is a 4:1 ratio, and the other one is a 9:1 ratio, and you can see what the prices are. These are US dollars. So for the pulleys, you're looking at about $500 for a set of pulleys. And then if you want a controller, well, that one's almost $1,000. Add shipping on, you're at $1,000. So that's a lot of money. So I want to show you some of the things that I use to make mine. I also want to say that when I was making this back in 1991, I was running the bicycle business. I had a dozen people working for me. I was pretty busy. So a friend came by. He was an engineering student at UBC. His name is Dean Chalmers. Haven't seen him for a long time, but he helped me out with the engineering. He was helping me to figure out how to make this. So I want to thank Dean. Hope you're still doing well out there. And we're going to look at some other things on the screen. In the States, there's a company called McMaster Car, and I used to order from them, and they've got a huge range of things for sale. Very, very handy. And then we had a situation where they found out that I lived in Canada, and they refused to sell to me. So that was the end of that. But it doesn't matter if you order from them or someone else. What you need, well, what I like is it's called an Acme thread. It's kind of a square looking thread. It's also called a lead screw. There's a whole bunch of different sizes you can buy. So on my drill press, it's a 1x5, and I'll show you what that means. This is the Acme thread or the lead screw. So it's a 1. That means it's an inch. And the 5 means that in an inch, you've got 5 threads. So that's how they classify it. So it's sold in lengths of 1 foot. You can get 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot. So if I get a tape measure, from end to end, I'm at about 15 inches. So I would have had to have purchased the one which is 2 feet long, because 1 foot is too short. So I want you to know that. And then you can see that what I've done is I've taken that Acme thread and I've machined it down so that it fits into here. This holder, it bolts onto this framework. Can you see how there's 4 Allen screws? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what holds this framework onto the top of the drill press. And then this is fixed and this is fixed. And these have to be the same spacing so that these 2 rods, this rod can slide and the thread can move. So you have to kind of figure out what the proportions are. Not rocket science. So you have to have a lathe and a welding set to weld it up. And then I made bronze bushings here. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4 bushings. Can you see the bronze inside there? So it's aluminum, it's bronze, and then it's rod. And this looks like about a 5/8 rod. And you can buy the nut as well, because I didn't have a tap to make the thread. So if we look back on McMaster Carr, they sell nuts. They've got a left-handed thread, they got a right-handed thread. So right here, it's made out of brass, and it's a 1x5. So obviously the nut has to match the male thread. It's $23. And if I go back to the other one to see how much the rod is, if I buy a 2-foot section of that rod, it's $16.57. So it's pretty reasonable. What they also sell is handles. Other companies sell handles as well. Some of the companies, that's all they sell is handles. There's a lot of different handles. So I wanted something nice, so I selected a handle. And I don't know, maybe I paid $40, $50 for the handle. But that's this handle here. And if you look how it's held on, there's a roll pin. Remember on the belt sander video we talked about roll pins? Well, there's a roll pin holding on the handle. So it took a little while to get this all made, to figure out materials and get it all fastened on. There's what holds these on. See in there, there's an Allen screw in there, and I think I see right there in there, those are also roll pins as well. So the Allen screw holds it in, the roll pin stops it from twisting or turning. We're going to have one more look at Dave's drill press, and I'll show you some of the features that he has. So what I want you to see is that he's got this at an angle, and what that does, it allows him not to have an extension here on the spindle. This is the spindle of the drill press. So let's look at mine. And because this is not at an angle, I wanted this to be flat. I had to make an extension here because you want the belt to be in line. You don't really want the belt to be going up or down or anything like that. You want the belts to be more or less in line. I know that as you use this and the belts are changing a position slightly, but I had to add this extension here to make this belt be horizontal. Let's go back to Dave's drill press. So Dave doesn't have any sort of a fancy sliding mechanism. What he's done, it's a little crude. He's taken a tube made out of steel. It's rectangular, and he's found a slightly smaller one that will slide inside. So this tube here, he's welded on the piece that holds the spindle for the pulleys, and then he's taken a piece of, looks like 3/4 by 3/4, maybe inch by inch, and he's welded it on. And he doesn't have a Acme thread or anything like that. This looks like half inch ready rod, probably national course. So when he changes his speed, he has to do a lot more revolutions, which maybe is not a big deal, but it's nice to have the Acme thread. And it looks like what this is some kind of a bearing, maybe a ball bearing or something, and he's got a nut on each side so that when you turn the handle, this doesn't move. This rod is turning, and it's turning inside this block, and that's what pulls this back and forth. That's how he changes the speed. So it doesn't have to be super fancy. It's not sophisticated, and probably if you grab the pulleys, there's a bit of movement because this tube, the smaller tube, is moving inside the large tube, but this is Dave's drill press. So I wanted you to see that you don't have to make it fancy to make it work. So with all this, I think that if you wanted to make a drill press like this, what you have to do is you have to find a used set of high-low pulleys, unless you go with Speed Selector, but I don't know what their system really looks like. They made pulleys for 70 years, and I asked them, how many did you make? I just got an email about an hour ago, and they said, we have no idea. So I thought that was kind of strange. You know, you're making something for 70 years, but you have no idea how many. You can't even guess. So that's the situation with the variable speed drill press that I have. So I hope that we've answered a bunch of your questions, maybe given you a little bit of insight and some part numbers, and we'll see where this goes from here. I'm sure there'll be a bunch of questions, but that's good. We can answer those. I was just talking to Mitch, and he was asking, how does this actually work? What actually happens? So I've taken off the belts here. As you can see, I just took off the belt. So I'm going to show you how this, we're going to move this over to the bench and we'll have a look. See that? It just pops right off. There's a shaft, there's a bronze bushing it rests on. So if you look inside, can you see all those needle roller bearings? That's why this thing lasts so well. I've been using this since 1991, 30 years. I do very little maintenance. I'm supposed to add some grease now and then. Can't remember the last time I added grease before I took it all apart. Well, the drill press. So do you see here how this works? This slides. It's basically plastic with some kind of a wear resistance on it. They talked about some kind of a formula they came up with. Can you see how it slides back and forth? So as you turn the handle, it pulls on a pulley and the other one is releasing. So that's how you change the speeds. It's pretty smart. It needs a little bit of something in there. This is moving, but you can see it needs a little bit of a cleaning. So if I put in some WD, I'm doing maintenance right now. Just give it a little shot of WD and you're going to see that, there, see how it's moving better now? It just hasn't had a shot for a while. There. Okay, that's what's supposed to happen. It just got a little bit gummed up, but it was still working fine. So I hope this really shows you how this works. So I know this is expensive, but it's a hassle when you have to move a belt on a pulley manually and readjust and all that. I did that when you want to go from a small drill to a larger drill. So much easier with this variable speed or high ratio compound pulley. That's what they call it. I'm really glad I got mine. And if you're making one, I'd like to know how it's going, okay? That's our video. Thanks for watching. We hope you've enjoyed it. Mitch and I like coffee. You know that. Please buy us a coffee. See you next week. Stay safe. So that's the fastest it goes. I hardly ever go that fast. I'm much more down at the lower end here. Sure is a neat system. And this has a little bit of a wobble, but doesn't seem to make a lot of difference.